Yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Mr.BandClap, and we in the building with another podcast, y'all. I know it's been a while since I've done this. As you can see, I'm in the baby filter. I'm baby BandClap right now because today we're going to be talking about Yemaya, which is the great mother goddess. Um, I don't know what I'm going to name this podcast. I was thinking of a few names, but whichever one I choose to pick, it's still going to be talking about Yemaya. So, got a lot to talk about, y'all. So let's get this show on the road.
Pitch perfect black skin, I'm not good at skin of your interpretation of my creation. Pitch perfect black skin, I'm not good at skin of your interpretation of my creation.
All right, y'all, so we back. Welcome to another BandClap TV podcast. As you can see, I've been working, grinding, getting this music thing together. I wanted to shed some light on my homegirl, Jada Artis. A lot of the songs that I've been sampling at the beginning of my videos that feature me in it, she's usually the singer that's on the hook or whatever. And in the future, we have songs together to where I'm on a verse and she's on the verse and she's on the hook and all of that. But a lot of those songs aren't ready to be out in the open just yet. Still got some legal things to take care of. So that's why I've been teasing y'all with these little samples till everything gets together legally and I can start mass producing and putting it on the different platforms like iTunes and Spotify and all of that. And once I get my music to that point, y'all would definitely, my YouTube subscribers, y'all will be the first ones to know about that. And also for all of my followers who follow me on Facebook, on my BandClap TV Facebook page, y'all will be in the know as well. So I wanted to give her a shout out. What y'all see right now in front of you all, and actually what y'all heard at the beginning of this video, was Jada, and this was her first performance by herself that she did at the Loud Gallery, which is a place in Orlando where I do a lot of open mic performances there, and she's usually with me performing and all of that. But this week I just wanted to chill out. I don't know if it was because Mercury was in retrograde or whatever, but I just didn't feel the need to perform. But I still wanted to go out and show support to all of the people who did perform, including her, and she did a pretty good job. Like, she did real good. I'm very proud of her and glad that I just got people in my life who not only share the same passions that I have, but is willing to go out there and take risks and do what needs to be done necessary to get those passions and those goals accomplished to the point where you can start to make money and other financial benefits from said passions. Because like I always say, if doing what you love is your job, it's not even gonna feel like work. So I'm a huge stickler on that. So I'll have some new music coming out soon, so y'all be on the lookout for that. So today I really want to touch on Yemaya. I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while now, actually, and I teased it a little bit on YouTube and on Facebook. Shout out to Mashly Foolish and Travis Magnus. I checked my notifications today and I looked at his video that he did about Yemaya, and I was like, damn, he beat me to it. And I wasn't about to do this video at first because I'm like, well, a lot of stuff that he touched on was a few of the things that I was going to touch on. But when I looked over my notes and I took out all of those little things and I looked at the stuff that I had left, and I still had a whole lot of stuff left, to the point where I can kind of put his video below as like the preliminary almost to the stuff that I'm gonna talk about today. Now, it might be a few things that I may touch on still because I didn't watch his full video, because being honest with you, if I'm doing a podcast about something and somebody else is doing a podcast about it as well, I don't want to watch their full video. I may watch like little small clip notes of it, but just to make sure that it don't seem like I'm trying to bandwagon or try to say the same talking points as somebody else did to take away from their video, I like to give my own personal synopsis of whatever subject that I'm talking about. And when we're talking about these Orishas, and with me embodying the energy of a Legua, which is that innocent baby Jesus child who sees all and knows all, I can talk about Yemaya in a more personal type of way, where a lot of people, they can only talk about her in more of a religious and occult spirituality type of way. But you know me, being the messenger that I am, I like to try to make these goddesses and these guys relatable to the way people are on earth, because at the end of the day, Yemaya is a goddess of the earth, meaning that for her to be able to be the goddess of creation on this earthly realm, she had to be birthed here as well, meaning that she has a higher self and she has a lower self. And the Yemaya that we like to refer to, meaning the Yemaya that's the mermaid with the two tails, even though she's very powerful and very great in that form, she's still only a fragment of what her true essence really is, which goes back to Akasha, because at the end of the day, Yemaya is a primordial goddess. So with me doing a lot of research into the religion of the Yorubas and the Lukumi and the Ifa traditions, because when it comes to that side of the game, I'm still learning. So like I said, in every podcast that I do talking about the Orishas, I'm not a Babalao, I'm not a high priest or anything like that. So I'm still learning when it comes to the religious aspect of it, because like I say, I know these Orishas personally, but a lot of the personal messages that I get from them, since they're not somewhere in a book to read it, or it's not coming from said Babalao or whatever, unfortunately, when it comes to how this world views information, it wouldn't really be seen as something that's valid because of that. So in order for me to really talk about these topics the way I want to, I have to kind of use religious references and different lingos, so that way I can disguise these things in the right frequency. That way it'll be a lot more relatable, understandable, and it'll kind of fly under the radar as far as a lot of these holier than thou religious cats that's in this African spiritual system that turned into a religion a lot later on, the way we see it today. So when we talk about creation, you have Olodumare, and from what I understand, Olodumare is looked at as the supreme god. Now, just from my understanding, knowing about different aspects of creation, I must assume that Olodumare is androgynous, simply because you can't get female from male. You can only get male from female, meaning that when a female chemically and genetically degenerates herself, that's how the male is formed. Now, again, just like how negative don't mean bad all the time and positive don't mean good all the time, when we talk about masculinity and femininity, we're just talking about two aspects of the one, which is androgyny, which is the true balance, meaning where you get your yin and yang symbol from. Even when we break down the Baphomet, it's all talking about androgyny, which is a perfect balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So we take that meaning and apply it to Olodumare. Now it makes a lot more sense that Olodumare was able to split into two when it came to dealing with and populating this earthly realm. And the two divine beings that were created from this split was Odua, which is the divine masculine side of the game, and then you have Yembo, which was the representation of the divine feminine side of the game. When you kind of think about it, they're the Yoruba version of the Adam and Eve story, but in their story, they came to the earth and did a big bang, if you know what I mean. And after they had sex, Yembo ended up being with child. And in the Patakis, this is when Yembo, for the first time, really started to experience earthly pain during pregnancy. It talks about how her body started changing and she just started feeling this rumbling in her stomach, and then a whole lot of pain started to ensue. So it got to the point where she was just in this unbearable pain state, and she just squatted down. And when she squatted down, the baby that formed from that, which was the first Orisha baby on earth, Agunju ended up splitting in two. And when we look at the Patakis, his higher self is actually looked at as the sun, which is called Olorun, or the king of the great star. Now, there were a few instances that happened that really garnered the transformation from Yembo to Yemoya, and also the transformation from Odua to Obatala, because everybody likes to talk about Yemoya as this real nice, great mother, caring, and all of this beautiful things. But when we look at the Patakis, after those certain events started to happen, when Yemoya first turned into Yemoya from Yembo, Yemoya was not a pretty sight. She was known as the furious mother. So when I saw those different avatars of her being a sea monster, I could believe it. But see, that goes back to why you should always do your research, and you should always do the work as far as getting to know these Orishas astrally, other than just reading a book and talking to a teacher or whatever, even though that's a good start. But a lot of these people putting up these altars for these Orishas and stuff, and they don't know what form of the Orisha that they're quote unquote worshiping, and they wonder why they got all this drama and turmoil and stuff like that going on in your house. And then someone has to come in and be like, look, that version of Yemoya or that version of that Orisha that you got up in your house, that was their furious form. That was their most trauma-filled form. So it's only right that you got all of this furious and trauma-filled stuff going on in your life, because that's the energy that you're letting radiate in your house. That's why it's so important. So let me go back a little bit, because to be honest with you, this story is kind of a rehash of the video that I did talking about the woman's imprint, because I broke this story down in that podcast too. Because a lot of us, we like to talk about transformation, because creation brings transformation. Just like when you got a baby on the way, you have to transform your whole life pretty much, because you can't do the same things that you would do when you were single and had no responsibilities, versus now you're about to be a father, or now you're about to be a mother. So you have to transform yourself to be able to fit that role. So we can look at Odua and Yembo as like the first etheric humans beings, meaning that they were a small percentage human and they was a lot more percentage God. I would say like 25% human and 75% God, if you want to go there with it. So imagine you having children that are light beings and warrior gods, and they got this much of their divine essence in them. Man, on this earthly realm where you got this duality and need for moral compasses and all this type of stuff, you're asking for trouble in a way, especially when you're talking about warrior gods, because we can look at this world and this realm that we live in right now, and you can see that when you have a son, and you can tell that that son is meant to be a warrior god, simply because that son is going to be so rebellious. He's going to have so much energy, so much rambunctiousness, and so much loquaciousness. All of these big words that this son is going to have. But the thing about it is, beyond all of that, you can see that the Most High really has a very unique plan for this child. And if you can just hang on in there and be hard on him, he's going to fashion to be a warrior god that may end up saving us all. But for those type of beings, especially for fathers, you really, really, really have to spend a little bit more time discipline-wise with that son. It's one of those situations to where sometimes the mama has to get out the way and let the dad do his job as far as raising and reprimanding that child. Because the more we go into not only African spirituality, because I didn't even realize how a lot of these scientific discoveries and genetic discoveries and all of this, I feel like a lot of it came from our ancient African spirituality too. Because I remember having a conversation with the sister, and she was talking about that women are a lot stronger than men simply because they can handle pain a lot more than men. Because we look at the whole thing about how women can hold the child for 9 months in her stomach and be able to deliver that child, and all the different joules of pain that that index actually is when she's going through that process of labor. But my counter argument to that is simply that just like women can handle pain a lot better than men can, we can transform with stress a lot more gracefully than women can. For example, because I went through this with my own ex and the different transformations that she went through, and that's when it comes to stress on a woman's perspective. Stress starts to eat away at a woman's estrogen levels, meaning that if a woman is super stressed out, she's not going to be horny like that. And it gets to the point where if she gets too stressed out for an extended period of time, she'll be sexually frustrated, but she won't be horny, or you just gotta do a lot to quote unquote get her there. Another example is that if a woman is pregnant and she's very, very stressed out during the pregnancy, she has a lot higher chance to lose that child. And when we talk about women, their greatest gift is being a mother. Their greatest gift is being able to bring life, aka a baby, into this world, and stress prohibits them from doing that. And just a general observation, because me, I work in a very masculine type of field. I do a lot of stagehand work, which means that I have to pick up those real heavy planks of wood that put those stages together, and work with different tools, and having to be able to lift real heavy things, almost like doing construction work, because we wear hard hats and vests and steel toe boots and do the same type of grueling work that a lot of construction workers do. The only difference is we don't work in a whole lot of dirt unless you're doing like a festival that's outside or something like that. And when you're doing that type of work, because it's an equal opportunity employer, you're going to have women that you work with too. And I can't lie, I've never been attracted to any woman that I've worked with on my job, because doing the type of work that I do, you have to have a certain type of masculinity about you in order to be able to lift those heavy objects and stay out in the heat doing that type of work. Now, you do have the occasional feminine woman that works with us, and she don't really do a whole bunch of work, at least not the heavy lifting. She's able to use her femininity to get other guys to do it, and then she do the less strenuous type of tasks sometimes. But on the grand scheme of things, the women that's doing the hardest work, sometimes working a lot harder than the guys, those women have very, very masculine attributes and features about them that make them not attractive to somebody like me who's looking for the utmost femininity in a woman. So I'm not attracted to masculinity. But that's what happens to a woman when she starts to put herself in stressful situations all the time. But see, when we're talking about guys dealing with stress, see, with us, stress builds muscles. With us, stress builds tough skin that makes us a lot more attractive to women. I mean, why do you think that women love guys with abs and muscles and stuff like that? They don't care about how stressful it is for us men, because it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes a lot of breaking down and destroying different tissues and stuff like that, and then rebuilding it in a muscular, disciplined, and stressful type of way. But the result, it looks good to them. The same way how we as men, we could be working in a real heavy lifting factory type of job, and we going through all of this stress and turmoil and all of this stuff at work, and then we can come home to our wives and still put it down on them. After we done worked hard and tired out, stressed out, we take all that negativity that we went through at work and we transfer it into our woman in a sexual type of way that she loves. Because to women, you have good pain and bad pain. And for women, sex is good pain. Remember what I was telling y'all about Akasha being the goddess of pain, and I'm gonna bring that up a little bit later on in this video too. So what I'm really trying to get at is, when I'm breaking these examples down, is that just like how Olodumare had to split into two, so Olodumare can know Olodumare's self a lot better. It's the same reason why man and woman, we need each other, so that we can learn ourselves a lot better. Because everything that we're not, you all are, and everything that you all are not, we are. And just just like the power symbol, when we come together, we create power. So back to this story about Oduwa and Yembo, because when we talk about Ogun, what we're really talking about is the result of what happens when the father has a son who is a warrior god, but that father is too absent from the home to be able to really enforce the rules that need to be enforced. Because even though in the Pataki, he was able to enforce them a lot later on, when we look at a lot of these warrior gods and warrior goddesses that's coming up in our generation, a lot of these homes, the father is absent indefinitely. So not only does this goes to show you that the way that a lot of black people act now and the way they act out, we've been doing this, and we've been had the potential to be this bad, because even in this ancient African spirituality, which predates a lot of religions and spiritualities, we still have an instance of how bad a warrior god can become if his father isn't present in the home. Now, it wasn't like Oduwa disowned Ogun to the point where it was like a situation to where Yembo had Ogun and he didn't want to take care of his son or anything like that. It was just the fact that with Oduwa being so busy with running things on earth, being the king of earth, he couldn't be in Ogun's life enough the way he needed him to be. So that's what made Ogun run rampant, because Ogun, he was a lot older than his brothers and all of that. And since he had that same stride that his dad Oduwa had, Oduwa didn't even think twice when he started to give Ogun a lot of dominion and a lot of power over things while he was going to work. But the thing about it was, even though Ogun was at an age to where he was supposed to be a lot more responsible with the power that he got, Ogun wasn't really mature enough to handle the power that he ended up getting, and thus he started to abuse that power in some of the worst ways imaginable. Because pretty much it was a situation to where Oduwa, he would wake up in the morning and he would wake Ogun up and he would tell Ogun all the things that need to be done and all the things that he expect for his younger brothers and sisters and all of that stuff to do before he got back home from work, which was taking care of all the other things that was going on earth. And while he was gone, Ogun was pretty much the man of the house. So he controlled who ate, he controlled who watched TV, he controlled the electronics in the house, because now we're trying to bring it back to an earthly level so the average person can understand this. So Ogun pretty much was that man of the house when Oduwa was at work. Now, the thing about it is, Yembo, her job was very important as well, but her job was more on the feminine side. So she was the nurturer, making sure everything in the house was clean, making sure everything was up to par and prepared for when her husband came home later on that night. But see, with Ogun, the only type of power, the only type of thing that really garnered respect with Ogun was force. He didn't really respect the whole passive, feminine type of aspects that Yembo would show him the older he got. So therefore, the older Ogun got, the more and more detached he got from Yembo, and the more respect that he lost from Yembo, because he just felt like she was useless and that the real power came from Oduwa, which he actually feared. So what he would do was he would take advantage of his power that he got from Oduwa, and to make sure that he kept that power and that Oduwa never found out, he would use the power that Oduwa gave him as a weapon to his younger brothers and sisters, telling them that if you tell Oduwa what's going on, I'm gonna make sure that y'all don't eat, I'm gonna make sure that y'all don't watch no TV, I'm gonna cut the fuse box off so it ain't gonna be no lights in the house, I'm gonna just make life pure hell for y'all if anybody snitch. Now at this time, Yembo was in a very fucked up position, because the more respect that Ogun started to lose for Yembo, his mom, it got to the point to where when Oduwa would say that Ogun was the man of the house, Ogun would actually feel like he was the man of the house, meaning that if Oduwa is the man of the house and Oduwa gets to have sex with Yembo, that means that since I'm the man of the house and I don't even respect Yembo as my mom, I just look at her just as any other woman, I should be able to do the same thing. Now, I know y'all listening to this like, yo, that is some very fucked up, devious, evil, unheard of, taboo type of stuff. And you have a lot of people out there that likes to talk about that things like rape and incest and all of that type of stuff are only things that white people do. Now, even though this might be true on the physical plane, when we talk about our African spirituality, this stuff was going on with our black gods and goddesses. Because if we like to push this narrative that the melanated race are the god and goddess race and everything came from us, that also means that everything evil came from us too. But see, if you start talking like that, you start losing subscribers and losing followers and all of that. Just like if you say that if the black woman is quote unquote God, then that means if the black woman starts to work in her negative polarity, now the black woman becomes the devil too. Ooh, yeah, I know I'm about to lose a few followers with that one, but I don't care, because I have to be balanced, meaning that if I'm gonna give y'all this content, I'm gonna be 100% truthful about it, at least to the best way I know how. So as y'all know from my last podcast about the woman's imprint, Ogun starts to rape Yembo, and Yemaya, she could have told her husband about what happened, but as a mother, she still loved Ogun to the point to where she didn't want to see Oduwa kill him, because she knows how mighty and how destructive his wrath can be. So instead, she just suffered in silence, like a lot of these black women that you see today that's going through a lot of trauma in-house with their own family, sometimes with their own fathers, with their own older brothers, and instead of them speaking out due to a fear of what might happen if they do, they just hold it in and keep it in. And a lot of these women, when we're talking about the 3 stages of enlightenment and them going back to their childhood, to their childlike innocence, it's hard for those type of women, definitely, because when they go back to that childlike state, now they got a whole nother set of cleansing that they need to do, so they won't have to relive that pain and that trauma. And I can't lie, that could be very, very, very hard to get over, as you're gonna see. So Yembo, she went through a lot of pain with that. She went through a lot of embarrassment with that, because Ogun would do this in front of everybody and dare them not to say shit about it. Now, you had a couple of his brothers who was just like, my name is Bennett and I ain't in it, simply because they wasn't trying to get their food supply taken away from them, and they wasn't trying to get their TV time taken away from him, so they would just fall in line. And then you had Aganju. Now, when Aganju found out that Ogun was doing that to his mom, Aganju, and the stress that he went through with that experience, seeing his mom being raped by his older brother, he flew into a fit of rage to where his two beings ended up becoming one. And this is how Aganju became the god of the volcanoes. And before Shango even came on the scene, Aganju was the first enemy of Ogun. Man, the Patakis talk about how Aganju whooped the shit out of Ogun, to the point where for some months Ogun didn't mess with Yembo anymore. Now, even though Aganju beat the shit out of Ogun, because like they say, fire is metal's worst enemy, because metal melts under fire. Number one, Aganju still kept his mouth shut when it came to telling Oduwa what was going on in the house, because he felt like he took the revenge into his own hands. But just like any bad child that gets a whooping, when a bad child gets a whooping for doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, they don't think about, man, I'm not gonna do that bad thing anymore, I'm gonna just hang that up and just try something else. Nah, when a warrior god or a warrior goddess gets into trouble and they get a whooping, they thinking about, damn, I got caught this time, so I need to devise a more sneakier plan so I can do the same thing, but this time don't get caught. So this is what was flowing through Ogun's mind at the time. So instead of him leaving his mom alone, he decides to play some blackmailing games with his younger brothers to try to make them distract Aganju so he can go in there and still rape Yembo and be successful at doing it. Now, out of all of the brothers and sisters that went in and played along with it, because I'm thinking about, why is it that Oya is so fierce, and why is it that Oya is the way she is? And then it came to me, a lot of these women that have a very, very astute hatred towards men, a lot of them either experienced abuse themselves by another man or another boy, or they seen their mom get abused by another man, another boy, or by their own father sometime. And unless you individually get that type of therapy, it's really, really hard to get over that type of trauma, because it's deep rooted. When you see something abusive happen to your own mama, or you see something abusive happen to your own sibling, like sexual type of abuse like that, man, that is, man, I wouldn't wish nothing like that on my worst enemy, like for real, because that's deep rooted trauma. And unfortunately, a lot of our melanated brothers and sisters are dealing with this type of trauma, and this type of trauma, it's really, really hard talking to people about it, and it's a very sensitive subject. And for a lot of people, they feel like it's easy for them to just hold it in and deal with it at a later time, but that later time never comes, because the more and more and more you hold it in, when it tries to rear its ugly head in the surface, the more and more painful that it starts to get every time you think about it. So you have a lot of women, they messed up relationships with real good men simply because of that. They went through something traumatic in their past to the point to where they wasn't able to fully open up their heart to that guy, or she wasn't fully able to see him for the unique being that he is, but instead she sees him the same way that she sees that abuser. So now with this information, I can see how Oya will be as masculine acting and wild and ferocious that she is, because I know women in 2019 that's wild and ferocious because of abuse that happened in their childhood, that they're still fighting that therapy, saying that they're all fine and everything is cool, don't worry about me, kind of like that song Sing About Me by Kendrick Lamar. And also you will see why in the end Oya ended up getting with Ogun, because unfortunately when it comes to women, trauma is one of the biggest imprints when it comes to women. So if a woman came from a real abusive upbringing that dealt with a lot of trauma and all of that, and she never got that therapy for it, unfortunately when she gets older, she's gonna be subconsciously looking for that too. And that's why you see a lot of these women that came up from abusive upbringing, they end up manifesting abusive boyfriends and abusive husbands and stuff like that in their own life too. So back to the story, the only younger brother who didn't go with the program was Alegua. And I remember talking in that podcast about how Ogun made sure to try to make Alegua's life hell, just to make him shut his mouth and not snitch. And when he found out that Alegua wasn't going to shut up and that he eventually was going to tell, that's when Ogun threw him out the house and Alegua ended up at the crossroad. Now, it really doesn't say how long this abuse was going on in the house, but I would imagine that it went on for a while. So if you really want to take it there, Yembo was the first abused mother on the planet Earth, even though she was the sole creator along with Oduwa when it came to creating life on this earth. So we can see that even at the dawn of our creation, it's showing you how a woman is able to endure different forms of immense amounts of pain and still be able to have a smile on her face when Obatala comes home. She was still able to probably do all the sexual things and do all the things that he wanted her to do, even though earlier that day she just got raped by her own son. I mean, that's real deep. So just like you can't really judge a man when he acts out because you don't know the type of stress that he's been through, it's the same way where you can't really judge when a woman acts out because you don't really know all the pain that that she's been through. So while Elegba was at the crossroads, he told Oduwa everything, all the way down to the point that Ogun was blackmailing his younger brothers and older brothers and all of that to keep them quiet so he won't say anything to him, and the fact that Ogun was raping Yembo and kicked him out the house because he knew he was gonna snitch. And this stress that this put Oduwa through really made his blood boil to the point where he literally died due to stress. So I would imagine he probably would have died of a heart attack or something like that if we trying to put it in earthly terms. But the way things go in the Yoruba kingdom, when your soul wants to eject from your body, like your soul is sick of having this experience, so you want to just go ahead and eject from your body, that's what literally would happen in the Yoruba African spiritual system. So Oduwa's spirit rose up to the heavens, and another spirit came into Oduwa's body, and this spirit was known as Obatala Ogunju, meaning the fierce father. And this is when the Legba was telling him that if you feel like I'm lying, why don't you come home early from work one day and see for yourself? So that's exactly what Obatala did, and he was very furious when he caught Ogun, to the point where Ogun, he was damn near ready to kill himself. That's how afraid he was of Obatala, because see, Obatala, he was a lot more human. He was like the third transformation from the heavenly realm. So Obatala, he was a lot more human than all of his other incarnations, meaning that he had that same human-like anger, but he was still an Orisha, meaning that he still had his Ashe, his powers. So he was very formidable. And Ogun, he wanted no parts of that. He wanted no smoke. So Ogun was like, look, you don't even gotta punish me. I'm gonna punish myself. From now on, I'm gonna be responsible for working all day and night to get food and tools to all of the Orishas and all the people in the kingdom so they would never go hungry. And I'm gonna just do that for the rest of my life in the forest by myself. And Obatala was like, so it is done. Not only will you do that, but I shall never trust you again, because that was some overly foul shit that you're doing. And then Obatala proceeds to punish the other two brothers, Osane and Ochosi, because Ochosi was able to get silenced just because Ogun promised him food. So Obatala told him that from now on, you're gonna be the hunter. And since you want to be so buddy with Ogun and his dysfunction, you're gonna work alongside of him, hunting for food for the kingdom and making sure that no type of enemies or anything like that can even get near the kingdom. So that was his punishment, aka job. And then with Osane, he specifically appointed him to let him know if anything out of the ordinary or anything crazy is going on in the house. So Osane, his punishment was, since you didn't speak up and you knew this stuff was going on and you decided that you wasn't gonna say anything to me about it, now the only time that you're gonna speak is if it's a emergency situation or there's a death that's about to happen, and you're gonna serve as kind of like a alarm to let everybody know that there's trouble going on. Now, just like the podcast that I did talking about it takes a fool to learn the game, since Elegua was bold enough not only to not accept the bribes that Ogun was giving him, since Elegua was resilient enough to take that pain and to take that punishment that Ogun was bestowing upon him simply because he wanted to tell the truth, and since Elegua was fearless enough to tell the truth, just like in that Pataki about Olodumare and Olofi, Elegua was appointed the man of the house, meaning that if any of the Orishas or if anybody wants to talk to Obatala, not only do you have to give an offering to Elegua before you even give an offering to Obatala, which made him the most important Orisha, even after that, he still have to put his stamp on whether you should pass or not, which also made Elegua / Eshu the most feared when it comes to the Orishas, because since Elegua is a child, your gifts are only going to get you but so far. Just like when I told you in that podcast about how Elegua represents the inner child, if Elegua senses that you have malintent and senses that you have an evil heart or evil intentions, Elegua, he still might get you what you want, but Eshu is gonna throw so many hurdles and stumbling blocks and all kind of stuff your way to the point where either you're gonna turn around and be like, man, this ain't even worth it, or by the time you get to the desired destination that you're trying to get to, all of that evil inside of your heart is gonna be pretty much all gone, because hopefully you would have learned lessons from all of those hurdles and all of those stumbling blocks that Eshu put in your way. Because since the word La Roye, which is another name for Elegua, means doesn't know any better, that means that everything that Elegua does, whether it's petty, whether it's crazy, whether it's stupid, it's all divine, because Elegua doesn't think in the same realm that we think in, because we've been fashioned and programmed and taught in this system how to be, when Elegua is still at that innocent state to where everything he does, even if he knocks something over or anything like that, it's still looked at as cute. Now, when it comes to Yembo, she got the greatest punishment, because before I tell y'all what Yembo's punishment was, I gotta kind of make an observation. And I was watching one of Black Male Advice TV, aka Ringo TV Raw. I was watching one of his videos where he was talking about how a lot of these black men are not good fathers to your daughters, and that black men contribute a lot more than we may put on when it comes to the dysfunction of black women. And with me going into my ancient African spirituality, I really see what he means by that, because you have women that when they get to that primordial Lilith type of mindset, that's when they start to feel that there really isn't much of a use for men. They say that men are the weaker gender, women are stronger, more powerful, more spiritually inclined. You know, you got the argument about parthenogenesis, I think that's what it's called, where back in the primordial days, women were actually able to impregnate themselves and all of that, and how if women can just get themselves together, they would be able to run this world world without men. Now, the thing about that is, if we were still in that primordial existence, because remember, the primordial realm is the realm before creation. It's kind of like in the middle of creation and uncreation, if you want to say that. That's where all the elder gods and elder goddesses are at. A lot of those elder goddesses, when they were on the scene, there was no such thing as a lot of different male gods. Now, masculinity was always around, but for the most part, femininity was the more prevalent thing. But as time grew and things started to change, when this earth was created, it was created for us to be able to find balance in every aspect of our lives. Because if you really want to go there, our souls are androgynous, meaning that before you got into this body that pretty much determined what gender you were going to be, when you was just a spirit, you just existed, meaning that you just was whatever you wanted to be, whether it was a man, woman, cow, pig, dog, bird, whatever it was that you wanted to experience. When you came on earth, that's what you became. And the thing about it was, the elders, they knew about this science. And that's why even in the ancient times, when we had a true matriarchy, not this matrix that we're in right now, what a lot of people that talk like that fail to realize is that even the matriarchy failed, just like this patrilineal matrix that we're in, it's failing. So what's next? What's the one thing that we haven't tried yet? And that is black men and black women coming together in a balanced footing and creating power that way, instead of one gender saying that they're better than the other gender. Because at the end of the day, no matter if you're a man or a woman, we're made from the same clay, and we're gonna die and get put in the ground the same way. You might live a little bit longer than me, or I might live a little bit longer than you, but just like I'm not immortal, you're not immortal. And I feel like that's the reason why we fit together like hand in glove, because like I said before, all the things that make you are different from the things that make me me. But if we come together, we can learn from each other and we can create power, just like how Yembo and Oduwa was created as two split personality of the same God, just so that that God can know itself. So it's gotten to the point now to where even though us that's in the know, we know that sex is the lowest form of communication, but since this world is ran so much around sex, a lot of guys think that they can control women with sex and or with physical abuse, which is further from the truth. Number one, you'll never ever be able to out freak a woman, especially not a black woman. Now, this video is already getting super long, and I was really gonna do this whole thing about race and how the different races came to this earth and all of that, but I'm gonna have to do another podcast talking about that, so I'm gonna just leave that there. And also, you're not gonna be able to, as a man, outpain a woman, meaning that you can beat that woman till she's damn near unnoticeable to the human eye, and she's still gonna find a way to get up, brush herself off, and if she wanna cheat on you, she's still gonna cheat on you. That's not gonna stop her from doing what she really wants to do. In order for you to be able to reprimand a woman and she really thinks about it and she really starts to make changes and try to go with your program and all of that, like Dr. BOA say, you gotta put her on ice, meaning that you gotta take something away from her that she really loves and can't do without. And if you happen to be that person that's imprinted her like that and she does something that you don't like or whatever, instead of hitting her or instead of trying to solve the problem by quote unquote beating that poom poom, which that is never gonna work. She actually loves that type of pain. When you put a chick on ice and she really loves you and she really respects you, that's gonna kind of put her in that mirror, so to speak. Kind of like when you got a young girl and she's not doing what she's supposed to do, so you tell her to go in her room and think about what she did, and you take away her TV, her phone, her Barbie dolls, all that stuff, to the point where she's just in her room by herself sitting down thinking about what she did. And with most little girls, once the dad comes back in the room to check on the little girl, she's either crying to him, talking about how sorry she is and begging for his forgiveness, and that's when the dad has to really be able to pinpoint and look at her and see, is she really sorry for what she did, or is she just saying that so she can get her toys back and get her phone back and her TV back? And I think as fathers, especially if you got a real beautiful daughter, one of the hardest things that you can do, especially if you got it, is to look in your daughter's face and tell her no. And then not only tell her no, be able to weather the storm when it comes to her crying and pouting and throwing temper tantrums and all of that type of stuff. But I honestly feel like a lot of those women who were able to play on their dad's heartstrings, they was able to learn at an early age that if any guy tries to put them on ice or tries to put them on some type of punishment or anything like that, all they got to do is bat their eyes, lick their lips, take a nude photo or something like that. And a lot of these guys, they'll forget about the punishment and they'll be right there. So there's really not any mental and spiritual reprimanding when it comes to these women, because that's all they truly understand as far as getting the sternness in a dominating way that only a man can give. Because see, for everybody who knows me and knows me on Facebook and all of that, y'all know that yesterday I was working this JoJo Siwa concert at the Amway. Now, I don't know anything about this girl, but whoever she is super famous. I mean, she's like a little 16-year-old white girl who pretty much sings the same pop tunes that a lot of the Disney Channel stars used to sing back in the Radio Disney days a long time ago. Back when you had Jesse McCartney, Aaron Carter, Lindsay Lohan when she was young, Hilary Duff, and even Hannah Montana. She reminds me of one of those type of breakout young kid pop stars. And apparently she has a very huge fan base, because with me doing security working that concert, it was packed to the max with a lot of kids, and I didn't really see a whole bunch of men. I mean, it's a little girls concert, so so that was kind of obvious, but still, all I really saw was women and their young children. And man, I can't lie, y'all, it's one thing that I can say: if you really want to see a woman in her most feminine state, in a lot of instances, look at how she is when she got that little child with her and no dad around. And man, when I tell y'all, they was selling beer and stuff like that at this kid's concert, it was crazy. And when you look at those little girls' eyes and you see the gleam and the high level of energy in their eyes, and then you look at their mom, they literally got that same gleam and glisten in their eyes too, as if they're kids too. And when it came to us security guards who were there to establish order in the arena, while all the kids were jumping around and dancing, and the mothers was just letting them do it because they knew that they really loved JoJo, so they was just gonna let them do anything that they wanted for the most part, we really had to act like the daddies in that venue. And it was a situation that happened in that venue that really showed me firsthand how a lot of women, they figured it out to the point where if they feel like daddy is about to punish them, all they gotta do is pout a little bit, bat their eyes, or do whatever, and then the dad is just gonna cower and let her run over him pretty much. And that's how a lot of women act when it comes to relationships. So one of my Caucasian young employees was working with me, and it was a situation that happened at the venue that it was this single mother, and her child was real rambunctious, jumping all on the chairs and stuff like that. So he just politely went over there and told her, look, you can't be out in the aisles like that. And when I tell you, that lady looked in his eyes, gave him a kiss, and grabbed on his dick and said, are you really about to kick me out the aisles? And I was like, wow. The fact that she really thought that her doing a sexual gesture like that, using her beauty and using her sex appeal to get ahead, even when her little child is there watching her. And when that security guard didn't fold and he didn't let that take him off of his job, and he still stood still and stood tall and reprimanded that woman, she started to get very, very irate. Pretty much, she started to act like one of the children for real and start cussing and throwing a tantrum and all of that. And we had to call in our head of security, and he had to come in and diffuse the situation. So going back to the story, in a lot of ways, Yembo thought that this is how Obatala was going to treat her. I mean, she was ready for any type of punishment that he was willing to give her. She pretty much accepted her fate. But what came out of his mouth next shocked her and everybody else that was around her. He said, from this day forth, if you have any more sons, they will be put to death. And that immense amount of pain that Yembo felt with those words is what transformed her into Yemaya, unfortunately. And her higher self, just like with Abanju, can be seen with the moon, because when Yemaya split into her higher self as Yembo, became the goddess Nana Baruku, which you can say is the grandmother of all the Orishas. And when we really want to talk family, the reason why Oshun is the way she is, and the reason why Oya is the way she is because Oshun, she took a lot more from her mother Yemaya. But see, Oya, she looked to Nana Baruku, her grandmother, for a lot of guidance, because when you look into her as a moon goddess, Nana Baruku, she actually deals with women who are in traumatized situations, and women who dealt with abuse, and women who got raped or molested or stuff like that. So to all of my women who are listening to this podcast, if you still got some therapy that you need to do and get under control and all of that, Nana Baruku is a really good goddess to work with. Now, I don't advise a lot of men to go to this goddess, because since she was formed in the way that she was formed, Nana Baruku don't have too much respect for men, especially men who are alpha males, because it was a so-called alpha male that raped Yemaya. So unless you're someone like Alegua, or someone who deals more in his innocence, that's the only way that you will get any attention from Nana Baruku. Translation, because we all know that Nana Baruku, she represents Big Mama. She represents the old grandmama, meaning that it don't matter how gangster you are in those streets, it don't matter how much of that nigga you are in the hood. When you go to grandmama's house and you're in grandmama's presence, all that hood, tough, alpha male, brute strength type of stuff, you leave that at the door. And when you're dealing with grandmama, you're dealing with her in a more respectable type of manner. I'll just say it like that. Even when grandmama is reprimanding you, and you know that with your brute strength, you could easily pretty much kill her with your bare hands, but you got so much respect and you got so much godly fear in her that no matter how hard she hit you with that broom because you're doing what you ain't supposed to do, that thought never crosses your mind. So this is the true story of how Yembo became Yemoya. Now, I know this was a very, very dark tale, because I can't lie, when I heard this story, it damn near felt like a Disney book gone wrong. I'm like, wow, could this be any worse? And yeah, it actually got worse. Before things get better, it always get worse, right? So just as she suspected, she did ended up having another son named Arumila, and she was very sad and very furious because she already knew what was to happen. Now, when Obatala found out about this, he was kind of sad too, because he really didn't want to do it. I mean, he made a lot of those decisions out of anger, but see, it's something about being a man, and no matter what you do when you're a man, not only do you own up to it, but just like the video I just looked at with Dolo the Pilot Man, shout out to Flight Boss, is that when you're a man, you gotta mean what you say regardless of the consequences, because you're never supposed to make a decision or say something that you're gonna regret out of anger or out of rage. So yeah, he saw that his son was beautiful and all of that, but I mean, he said, look, rules are rules, and if I let this slide and I'm running this kingdom, everybody gonna feel like that they can get over on me. So I gotta be able to make an example using this to show the other kingdom that when I say something, no matter how painful it is to me to keep the rules, I still gotta keep the rules. So the curse is still in place. So he gave gave the baby to Alegua, and Alegua was told to bury the child under a tree where it can die. Now, fortunately, this story has a happy ending because even though the child was buried, I think he was buried for like 7 days, he didn't die. You know why he didn't die? Because Alegua, when he dug the hole, he left a little air hole so the child could breathe. And then when his dad and his mom wasn't looking, he would sneak off to the forest with food so he can feed the child. Because see, the Most High told Alegua not to kill him. So he was like, damn, I'm in a crossroad again. I can't just disobey my dad, but I'm damn sure not finna disobey the Most High. So everything ended up working out with that situation. But until this time, Yemaya was not the nicest creature at all. At all. She went through a lot of pain. I mean, a lot of pain. Shoot, imagine what those women went through during slavery. They had to give up their children and give up their families and be sold off to a whole nother family in a whole nother state. Man, I could only imagine. And even then, I don't even want to imagine it. So Yemaya didn't turn into that real sweet, kind, loving type of mother goddess that we all know and love. She didn't turn into that actually until Oshun came on the scene. When she had Oshun and she saw how beautiful Oshun was as a baby and she saw how divine she was and all of that, this is when Yemoya's heart once again filled with joy and once again filled with love. And this time, that love wasn't going to go away. This is when things really started to turn around for Yemaya. And this is around the time to where both Yemaya and Obatala started to go through their own stages of enlightenment. Now, since we're talking about spiritual and etheric beings, when the Orishas transformed due to their enlightenment, they actually transform into totally new beings. Even though they got the same body or whatever, they literally transform into new beings. With us, when we go through our stages of enlightenment, we kind of go through the same situation. So now with this information, you can go back and watch that podcast that I did about the woman's imprint, and now this story would make so much more sense why in the end the union between Obatala and Yemaya is the greatest love story ever told. So with you hearing this, now you see why both of them, in order for them to come back together in that divine union, they had to have time off to themselves to transform and get rid of all of that trauma and get rid of all of that anger and all of that anguish in order for them to come back together as the great mother and father of the Orishas. So since I got that story out the way, I kind of want to just talk about Yemaya for a minute as it relates to relationships and just overall who she really is as a being, because I can't lie, I love being around Yemaya. Yemaya is cool as fuck. Even though she had a real trauma-filled life, she's one of those great mothers that did that work, meaning that she got a little sternness about her. She's not as stern as Nana Baroko though, but you can sit down and have a talk with Yemaya and you could really learn some stuff because she done been through a lot of stuff. So one thing about Yemaya is when she's in the water, she is huge. Like Yemaya is humongous when she's in the water, because with her having dominion over the sea like she does, she has to be able to give birth to all the sea life and everything that goes on in the sea, as well as being the mother of civilization. So with her being that dualistic type of being, the reason why Yemaya has two tails is because even though she's really huge when she's in water, as soon as Yemaya gets on land, those tails turns into feet, meaning that she can actually like walk on land as a regular human looking woman, even though she's still a whole goddess. She can still walk on land. So my introduction to the energy of Yemaya, seeing who she really is, it really started, I would say, back in like 2015, around 2015, 2016. That's when I started lightly looking at the Orishas. So I was going through some inner trauma, some emotional turmoil, if you will. And I used to listen to this show a lot called Miss Blue Planet Remix. And shout out to Miss Blue, because I was on a few of her shows. I called in, and Miss Blue, she helped me out in a lot of ways other than what she even knows. So Miss Blue, if you're listening to this, I really gotta thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you're the one that introduced me to Yemaya. Because anytime I would go through anything as far as stress or anything like that, I could always listen to Miss Blue. And even though Miss Blue didn't play, like if you had some shit that you was not trying to do or some stuff that you know better or whatever, she will call you out with the quickness. But her voice was just so divinely feminine, and it was just so like soothing and all of that, to the point where you didn't want to cuss her out or anything like that, because you pretty much, you knew what you was doing was wrong and she was just calling it out. So one night I called in to one of Miss Blue's Planet Remix shows, and it was a show to where it was kind of like an open mic in a way. There was a guy that was a part of the industry and he was there listening in to the people that was calling and all of that. So I called in and I spit some hot fire to him, and he was very intrigued by it, gave me some really good criticism. So I asked Miss Blue, since I did this for you, could you give me a reading? So she gave me a reading with a amethyst crystal, and I could remember going to sleep and I was kind of in this sleep paralysis type of state. And while I'm in this sleep paralysis type of state, I'm seeing all of these little colorful orbs flying around me, kind of like Christmas lights, but they're moving like fireflies. So all of these orbs are around me. So I fall asleep, and in my dream, I'm at this beach by the ocean, and the moon is shining real bright. And in the ocean, I see this figure just gracefully going left to right in the ocean. I knew it was a black woman, because even as a mermaid, she got curves. I'm like, what the fuck? But when I tell y'all, she was huge, like this real huge top half of a black woman, just gracefully going left to right in the ocean. Now, she had this real dark cloud of energy. That's the only way I could really explain it around her. Now, I found out later in my research that that energy was as Eshuaye, which is the protector of Yemaya and Olokun. Just like I say, every Orisha has an Eshu. Translation, all of these niggas got issues in some type of way. But at the end of the day, that's what makes them so great. The fact that they could overcome those issues and become the great Orishas that we know today. Now, out of all the stuff that she's been through regarding men and all of that, one thing that Yemaya let me know indefinitely, that not only does Yemaya love men, she admires men. And the main reason why she admires men so much is because they're so different from her. And that's what she loves about. Translation, when you see Yemaya, or if you want to find a Yemaya, because this is the thing, when Yemaya wants to go out and quote unquote have some fun, which is something that Yemaya really doesn't do a lot because she's always busy taking care of her children, she's only gonna be around other guys, literally because she looks at everything and everyone else as her children, something that she needs to nurture and take care of. But she knows that when she really wants that dominance, she gotta step out that water for a minute in order to deal with the real men. Because let's talk about Lemuria for a minute. Let's talk about Atlantis. See, that's the reason why I really don't understand what this outrage is about this whole Little Mermaid being black situation, because last time I checked, in our ancient African spirituality, we always had mermaid and they were all melanated. So let's put it all together. In order for you to get a woman who's gonna be a great mother, in order for her to truly respect you and to truly admire you and to truly love you, all you would need to do with her is to literally just be a man. And I mean in every aspect of being a man, because since Yemaya had a very, very balanced upbringing, and with her being the great mother goddess, she knows the type of things that separate man from woman, and she loves those things that make a man a man. Like I say, even though Yemaya is an older lady, her sex drive is like Oshun. So don't let that age fool you. And Akasha the same way. So every time Aaliyah would make those songs and talking about age ain't nothing but a number and all of that stuff, I'm like, the hell it ain't. These primordial goddesses, they come on earth a few times just to let y'all know what's up, and then they dip out. We just have to have our third eye open to see that that's what it is. And this is the thing, if you're a guy out there and you're trying to find a woman who's going to be a great mother to your children, make sure that when it comes to you being a man in every aspect of the word, whatever girl that you're vetting, make sure that she's cool with that and that she can roll with that, because that's going to be one of the first signs that you're dealing with a potential Yemaya. Now, another thing about Yemaya, she respects knowledgeable men, quote unquote men that's on stage 3. Those are the only type of men that would really appease Yemaya and really make her want to get with your program. Because with Yemaya being so beautiful, and with her being the mother goddess having to take care of all of the children and all of that, Yemaya, she have a lot of sea men around her. Because at the end of the day, she looks at those sea men as little children, even though the sea men are the ones that's protecting and taking care of her house, taking care of the other sea life, making sure everything is in order in the sea kingdom. But at the end of the day, Yemaya don't treat her sea men the same way she treats Obatala. Translation, I know y'all was waiting on that translation. When you get with a Yemaya, she's gonna be family oriented right out the gate, meaning that whatever she needs to do to help you to make your dreams come true, whatever she needs to do to help you make your goals be accomplished and all of that, so that you can be the greatest father to your children that she wants to have with you, she's gonna do that. And man, Yemayas have a lot of kids, because that bounce back game is crazy. Man, my grandmama had 9 kids, so you know, I don't know what was in the water back then, but now there's a reason why Yemaya sees her sea men as little children, aka something that she needs to take care of, but she don't treat them in the same way that she would treat Obatala or a Gunju. Now, we already know when we're talking about semen on a literal type of level, when a man ejaculates, the sperm count vary from about 20 million to 100 million sperm cells per milliliter of semen. So yeah, those sperm cells can be looked at as little children, and it's kind of like those little children playing hide and go seek. Not all the children is gonna find the egg. Actually, only one of the children will actually be able to find it, and when they find it, that's when they'll be able to go in, and that's when the whole pregnancy and birth process begins. So that's on that level. But let's take it a little bit deeper, since we're talking about goddesses of the sea, shall we? A sea man is an androgynous man. Now, the way she showed me that things would really work, at least back in the ancient time, would be, now this is all allegorical, it isn't real, I gotta put that out there. So Yemaya would nurture the little sea men until they get to a certain age, and then Obatala will come in and raise them up out of the water. And I can't lie, you being in the water all that long time, and now you got to get used to a whole nother environment with a whole nother density of air and all of that. It's a painful process, but at the end, that sea man becomes a real man. Now, don't get it twisted. If you were a sea man and you just wanted to stay androgynous or whatever, she'll still love you and she'll still take care of you and nurture you. But when it comes to that freaky and sexual type of side of Yemaya, only a real man, aka an Obatala, would see that side of her. Translation, Yemaya is the epitome of unconditional love. We all know that, right? Now, in this day and time, a sea man would be known as a beta male, that guy who's a serious mama's boy. He might didn't have his dad around to really raise him up out of the water of his mother's bosom. So even though he's on land and he appears to have 2 legs like the rest of us, deep inside he still has a tail like a fish, and it's easier for him to swim in his emotions rather than walking on solid truth. And since Yemaya is a nurturer, just like that grandma who only want to see her children smile and be happy no matter what is said or done, even though he maybe was in the wrong or anything like that, as long as he can go back to that grandma or that mama that's gonna tell him that everything is gonna be all right, don't listen to them and all of that, aka jump back into the water and swim to Yemaya's castle where everything is just love and all of that. It's hard for sea men to really function like that in a society or in a job or in a career where there's a whole bunch of real men around, because since they haven't really been around that all their life, they come off being very combative, very drama filled. They act like women when it comes to handling men like situations. And knowledge, man, somebody trying to give them some knowledge and some wisdom, that kills a lot of them on the inside. Translation: light and air, which is knowledge and intelligence, is semen's worst enemy, because semen dies as soon as it gets in contact with air and light. Going back to what I said, a sea man either is androgynous or appears androgynous. I mean, I'm not speaking negatively on this situation, I'm just proving a point here. Why do you think that when a lot of gay guys and a lot of gay girls, when it's time for them to come out and they want to tell somebody who and what they are, a lot of times the grandmothers be the first ones to really take them in and accept them for who they really are? It never fails that when you see some gay guys or whatever, there's always an older woman somewhere in the mix, because at the end of the day, Yemaya's love is unconditional. She don't care what you are. She don't care if you're gay, straight, bi, whatever. If you need nurturing, if you need love, that's what Yemaya's here for. She's here to give love. And at the end of the day, I respect the sea men and the real men, because you need both in order for this world to prosper. Now, another thing about Yemaya is not only does she admire men, and not only does she respect a real man for being a man, another thing about Yemaya is she's also a respecter of her man's space, and vice versa, meaning that you're not gonna see Obatala in the sea trying to tell Yemaya what to do, and you're not gonna see Yemaya all up in the sky trying to tell Obatala what to do, because at the end of the day, they know what their purposes are on this earth. Even though that they're 2 totally different purposes, the end goal is the exact same. So they trust each other, because at the end of the day, Yemaya is a very, very busy woman. I mean, she got the whole 7 seas to make sure that everyone is straight, everyone is taken care of, and she got everybody on land that she has to take care of too. So she's a very, very busy woman. She don't got time to be trying to see is Obatala messing around with one of the sky goddesses or whatever. And Obatala, he's very busy as well, so he don't got time to be running all up behind Yemaya, because like the Pataki say, Yemaya is one of the most beautiful women that you could ever lay your eyes on. And with a lot of these guys out here today, a lot of them wouldn't be able to handle Yemaya. They wouldn't be able to handle having a Yemaya for a wife, because a lot of these dudes, they so insecure when it comes to their women that it's like they can't even seem to leave them alone just for a minute, for a fear that they might cheat on them or something like that. And Yemaya, she gave me this real simple formula when it comes to man and women relationship that I'm gonna share with y'all at the end of this video, because I'm already seeing right now that this is gonna be a long one and I ain't even halfway done, but I'm gonna have to stop momentarily. Now, translation: you know that you got a Yemaya when you tell your girl that you about to be late coming from work, or you tell her that you about to go out with your friends or something like that, and she's busy doing her own thing. So she's like, all right, honey, you know, go have fun, bring me back a doggy bag, or, you know, if you dance with a girl, slap her on the ass one time for me. See, one thing that I noticed when it comes to relationships, the more open and honest you are, the less activity happens in that relationship. Meaning that I've seen a lot of situations to where a couple can be in an open type of relationship where they're together but they're not tied to each other, and a lot of those relationships last sometimes longer than marriages depending on if whatever person wasn't ready to settle down just yet. But with some people, just the thought that I could go and get with somebody else whenever I want to, it just makes them stay in the relationship and end up loving that person a lot more, because the love isn't forced. It's something that genuinely just happens. And then for the woman, the thought that the guy that she's with can easily just go and get another girl, for some women, it turns up their femininity to the max. And in a lot of ways, when you really look at Obatala and Yemaya, they kind of had that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett relationship, because when you look at the Patakis, their relationship was very open and it was very honest, and that's what made it such a long-lasting relationship. Now, they took time away from each other. You know, Yemaya got with a Gunju, created the seasons, then she got with Orula, she learned how to be a diviner, she got with Baba Luaye, and she learned how to heal, and she learned how to do different divination when it came to that. And see, that's another thing when it comes to Yemaya. Look at every single relationship that Yemaya got in after Obatala. All of these relationships that she got in, not only were they a part of her path to make her stronger as a woman and as a goddess, all of these men were revered men. A Ganju, the first definition of what a true alpha male stood for, the god of volcanoes and the god of fire. And then she got with Orula. Now, the situation with him, he was one of those type of guys to where he had Orisha and god power, but he still didn't look at himself as a man without it. So in a pity type of way, that's what Yemaya showed to Orula. And in return, he gave her the power of divination, throwing shells, doing readings, all that type of stuff. And then we don't even want to get started with Baba Luaye, the most feared Orisha because of his ability to create sickness and death and spread it throughout whole diasporas. But he was also able to heal too. So he was a very important man, even though he was an older man. So when Obatala did his transformation to the Orisha Oko, which was the great farmer, and then Yemaya came around, and she's this new being that has all of these new tools and skills and attributes that can be so useful to help Obatala. It's like the reconnection was just inevitable. It was meant to happen. It was destined to happen. So I may do a part 2 to this because I feel like I might be leaving some stuff out, but I'm not sure. But for right now, I want to touch on this last thing, going back to relationships and dealing with your innocence. When I last talked about this, I was talking about how Oshun was telling me about love, and she was like, for a woman, love is about surrender, and for a man, love is about stability. So in a balanced relationship, a woman will surrender her essence to that man, aka lighten up his house, while the man goes out and brings back the resources to not only keep the house in good shape, which he's surrendering his stability to her. Now she can use those resources and take care of her duty as being the obini or wife in the relationship. Now, when I had this conversation with Yemaya, hers was a little different. She say that women, they deal with love. Men, we deal with respect. Now, when it comes to trust, that's a whole nother type of situation, because trust is almost like ownership. You can't trust that a situation is going to go your way fully unless you own that situation. And last time I checked, you can't own a woman, and a woman can't own a man. Now, a woman can use her chemicals in her vagina and also her sexual charm and all of that to get a man sprung, but that only lasts for a season. And as soon as he come back to his senses, he out of there. Just like for a man, you think you can quote unquote dick her down real good, and that's gonna make her stay. I hate to burst your bubble, homie, but if she wants to find a bigger dick, she can find that. And if that's all your relationship is built on, man, she's literally one Tyrone away from breaking up with you. Now, Sister Myra, she beautifully made this video. It's on Mashly Foolish, talking about the 3 relationships, talking about the brother and sister relationship, the mother and son relationship, and the father and daughter relationship. Now, I want to put my own spin on it if I can, because I know at the end of the day, all 3 of these relationships are something that if you're in a serious relationship with a woman, or if you have wives, these are some of the relationships that you're going to go through. Now, when we're talking about soulmate connections, because at the end of the day, a soulmate is nothing but a playmate. All this really saying is, you as a man, you got with this girl and y'all already had mental sex, meaning that y'all vibing, the chemistry is just unbelievable. So all those walls are broken down, but it's a whole nother type of connection when your inner child and her inner child meet up together and share harmony with each other. Now, that's what you call a soulmate connection. So the way this would look, the man and the woman would be in a father-daughter type of relationship, and then your souls would be in a brother and sister type of relationship. Now, this is the thing, as long as the soul connection is good, it don't matter if sometimes the roles switch from father to daughter to mother to son, because if a woman got a man and that man gets hurt or something like that, he gets hurt on the job or he got some pain or anything like that, if she really loves him, that mother instinct is going to come out with him, and she's going to try to do everything in her power to heal that man. So there goes the mother and son type of relationship. But since their souls are still in a brother and sister type of bond, even though she's taking care of him like a mother, she still got that alpha type of respect for that man. And just because her inner Yemaya has to come out, she's still not going to look at him as a C man. But the relationship that I'm talking about is a woman that's on her stage 3 and a man that's on his stage 3. So all that other stuff will be avoided. So the way Yemaya explained it, because she said that especially if a woman is with a man and she's going up her stages of enlightenment, you can't trust that that woman is going to be with you when she gets to stage 3. That's just too much. And a lot of times that can be our problem. Us as men, we have this ownership mentality. If we got to raise something up and put a lot of effort, time, and energy into it, we feel like we own that thing. Now, for physical property, that's the case. But when we're talking about another human being, whether that's your 18-year-old child or whether that's your own girl or your own wife, there is a such thing as outgrowing each other. And when that relationship has outgrown its course, the woman would know a lot quicker than the man would. But just like Obatala, we have to get to that point to where we know what the situation is before we get into it. So when it's time to let them go, it won't be so painful because we won't have that ownership type of mentality. Because at the end of the day, a woman's nature is a woman's nature. And if she wants to leave, she's going to leave. And if she's frustrated, she's going to show it, because women wear their emotions on their sleeves for the most part. And you're going to sense a very, very big change if you try to stay in that relationship. So the way it would work is, on a physical level, the woman has to love the man and the man has to respect his woman. Now, before y'all get all riled up in the manosphere, let me explain this. So a situation to where you got this woman and you know she loves you and you know she don't want nothing but the best for you. So you about to go hang out or you about to do something and you dealing with a stage 3 woman and she sees a premonition or she gets a vision that some bad shit is going to happen if you go out tonight. Now, out of love, she tells you, she's like, look, Tupac, what Suge Knight said is super suspicious and I really don't feel comfortable with you going to Vegas to that Mike Tyson fight and you not wearing your vest. Now, if Tupac would have respected his girlfriend's honest and innocent request and put his vest on, who knows? Tupac still might be alive today. Now, spiritually, you have to love your woman, and spiritually, she has to respect you as a man, because see, a woman can be beautiful all she wants to, but if she got respect for her man, even if she going through some tough times or whatever, she's not gonna step out on her man if she respects him. And the reason why I say she has to spiritually respect him, because at the end of the day, the flesh is weak. She can physically respect you one day and then go to work or go somewhere and be in the presence of an alpha male that's a little bit more alpha than you. As soon as she starts to respect him more than you, oh, you got an issue on your hands, brother. But spiritually, because spiritually, that's more of an unconditional type of respect. That's either one of those, either you got it or you don't type of respect. Once a woman loses spiritual respect for you, it's over. You can love her till you blue in the face. But as soon as she see another dick to hop on, she's on it, because I can't lie. Once a woman don't respect you no more, she literally puts you in the C-men category. See, the thing about it is, when the woman got you in the friend zone, you can get out the friend zone. But once she sees you as a C-man, it's over. You're never gonna get out of it. It's a wrap. You might as well just try your luck on somebody else. But all in all, the main thing that I really wanted to drive home with this video is just that we need each other. Black men, black women, no matter what shade you are, no matter what color you are, black women, black men, we need each other. Our power is when we come together, not only sexually, but actually building. There's one thing that I do agree with Ringo TV Raw about. We need more building, more Yemayas and more Obatalas, more Obanani, more Oshun. And then, and only then, will we have that ultimate goal of a powerful existence as melanated people that you always hear about in the conscious community. So that's my podcast, y'all. I know it's super long. Shout out to everyone who stayed at the end, as always. Shout out to all of my day ones: Trishina C, Anahata, Ashara L, Queso Godly, Homegirl, Isabel, Jada, just everybody who's rocked with me all this time. All of y'all who comment on my videos and send me donations. Like I always say, I appreciate it, I appreciate it, I appreciate it. Y'all don't know how deeply that means to me, how important that means to me, because I can't lie. I wouldn't have kept doing this if it wasn't for y'all. Like, on some real talk, like, I really appreciate y'all for listening to me and checking out my videos. As you all know, follow me Instagram, BandClap TV, Facebook, BandClap TV, and yeah, till next time, BandClap TV, we out. Let me know if y'all want me to keep talking about Yemaya.